Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Olaoluwa, and it's great to be on the show again. Not too long ago, I was talking to a lady and I asked her, do you read novels? And she said, yes, I do read novels. And I said, well, which are your favorite novels, or who are your favorite novelists? And she mentioned people like Francis Rivers, Ted Dekker, and a host of other foreign writers. And I said, oh, I love those authors. They're excellent. They're brilliant. But have you ever read any Nigerian novel? Do you read Nigerian novels? And she said, no. And I was surprised. I said to her, you should read Nigerian novels because Nigerian writers are really talented. You need to dig into Nigerian novels. And she said, oh, who are the Nigerian novelists? And I began to roll out a few names for her. And she was excited. And she said she's going to start doing that. Now, there are many brilliant Nigerian authors out there. I've read quite a number of novels written by Nigerian novelists, and some of them are just mind-blowing. Authors who are based in Nigeria, and then Nigerian authors who are based overseas, all over the world. If you've not been reading Nigerian novels, you need to dig in, get your hands on a few, try them out, and you may be tempted never to read foreign novels again after you've read a few of them. Now, I'm reading one now. Rather, I have one with me that I've read. The YNBA, written by Olaoluwa, who happens to be our guest on the show today. Well, she came in some time ago and we spoke to her. We had a wonderful conversation with her to explore her book titled The YNBA and also her life as a writer. Olaoluwa is a lawyer who works both in Lagos and in North America, and she wrote this book. Now, when you read her novel, you can't help but wonder if she was trying to make statements about her profession, her professional colleagues in Nigeria, her senior professional colleagues in Nigeria. Now, there are many great lawyers in the country, many law firms in the country, and a lot of things are happening in them. She took some of those experiences and observations and she wove them into this beautifully told story. The YNBA. Let's get to meet with Olaoluwa and enjoy the conversation we had with her. She's one of those Nigerian authors you need to start reading their works. Enjoy this.
Olaoluwa Oni is a lawyer, writer, and social commentator. Oni has a degree in law from the University of Lagos and an LLM from New York University. She's currently a PhD candidate at Osgood Hall Law School. Oni has practiced as a litigator in Nigeria and New York and has written several legal commentaries for online and print media. She joins Channels Book Club to discuss her debut novel, The YNBA.
Olaoluwa, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
It is really lovely to have you, to be here.
And I like the way, I like the way you put the armies on your name. The armies, what do you call armies?
So tone marks.
Tone marks, yes.
Yes.
Real Yoruba.
It was very deliberate.
Very deliberate. Even the names, the Yoruba names in the book.
Yes.
You did that to all the names.
Yes.
That's a proper way of writing Yoruba, really.
Yes, and it was almost like the politics of language. I was playing with the politics of language. I mean, there's one level which is sort of removing the italics from indigenous or Nigerian words when you're writing an English text. And I think the next level is representing them properly on the page. And so it was very deliberate. And I was happy that my publisher was committed to my agenda. Yes.
Agenda. Now, you need to, before we start talking at all, you need to demystify this cover. This cover, why? What's the story behind this cover?
Okay, and it's interesting because I get asked this question every time I'm being interviewed. So, are you familiar with the concept of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil?
Oh,
the
yes.
three monkeys, exactly. So I was trying to play on that philosophical thought. To my mind, if you exist in a place where evil is, present and has taken over the space and you adopt the attitude of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, you are perpetuating or you're at least permitting that evil to continue.
To thrive, yeah.
And so what the cover does is switches the philosophy on the head. And so we have three monkeys who are seeing, hearing, and speaking about. So we have like the red mouth and the monocle and the large ears because the YNBA, the organization in the book, is committed to exposing and talking about and shining the light on the oppressive practices.
They are not interested in seeing no evil. They want to see the evil.
Yeah, they want to see the evil.
And they want to speak the evil. And they want to hear the evil.
About
the evil. And they want to hear the evil. Yeah. Okay. Where do I start with you, Olaoluwa? Because, you know, when I was reading your book, I had so many questions in mind. You are a lawyer.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Now, let's start with what's in the book.
Okay.
Then I'll come back to the more dicey questions.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this book is a story of YNBA. I will tell you, I will allow you to summarize it for the very curious viewer who's wondering, what's this book about?
Yes, so the YNBA actually stands for the Young Nigerian Bar Association. And what the book did was to create a fictitious organization of young lawyers that were dedicated to combating what I think is the very real and very present culture of oppression in law practice in Nigeria today. And so what the YNBA did was form themselves into an underground society, and then they would like earmark a lawyer that, oh, this person is oppressive, and like we need to take him down, and they'll put him in a blacklist. And I mean, this happens pretty early on in the book, so it's not a spoiler, but they decided that all the young lawyers in the practice would resign and, you know, have the man run his practice himself since he thinks, you know, he's so good and he can do it himself. And we begin to see the power that the people at the bottom of the pyramid have. So the mass at the bottom of the pyramid actually sustains the triangle. And by the time the young lawyers removed their services, the pyramid came crashing down. And essentially that's it. The people that you think are powerless and the people that you think you can oppress are truly the ones sustaining the fruits that you enjoy.
Okay, let's dig in. Now, the typical law firm in Nigeria, and perhaps globally anyway, the typical law firm has the senior partner. Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but it's what I see. So we've got the partner, the big boy, you know, or the big boys. And then you've got the younger, more inexperienced,
I would challenge the word inexperienced.
Inexperienced,
I argue that they are very experienced because they're usually the ones that do the work, right?
Okay.
So you wouldn't want to employ an inexperienced person to handle your client's brief.
Okay, I take back the word inexperienced. So there are other lawyers down the chain.
Yes.
Okay. And typically in Nigeria, I mean, the top lawyers, according to what you've insinuated in this novel, tend to be a bit oppressive and mistreat the younger lawyers now. So why YNBA is that secret society of young lawyers who say, no more.
Yes.
If we see a senior lawyer oppressing the younger lawyers, we deal with them.
Yes.
And in your own story, in the first scenario, the big lawyer, a Carrington SAN, a senior advocate of Nigeria called Carrington.
Yes.
You know, he's a bit oppressive to his younger Jiboye lawyer. And so Jiboye is part of YNBA.
Yes.
And suddenly he goes to work and 26 employees have resigned.
Yes.
Because they're all members of YNBA.
I was really delighted writing that scene. Like, it gave me so much joy to shock Otumba Carrington in that way.
So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about Otumba Carrington and Jiboye Yanko. But generally speaking, did you write this as an advocate, as somebody who hates oppression and you don't like what you see in the law firms in Nigeria, or did you just write it as an artist, a creative writer? We're just looking for a good story to write, and that happens to be a good story, so you just use that as your story, or were you trying to send out a message?
Yeah, I was entirely, I can't even deny it. I was entirely political and entirely activist when I was writing this book. It's interesting because even though this is my debut novel published, this is not the first manuscript I finished. The first one was more artistic, right? And I just felt like this is not what I want to introduce myself to the world with. Like, I wanted to make a statement about something that was very important to me, which is oppression. and how we can eradicate the culture, or at least reduce the culture of oppression. And so, yes, it was very political. It was very activist. I tried, in fact, I almost felt like I was happy to sometimes compromise on what some people might call the artistic integrity if it would push the political message forward, if it would have more, I guess, less technical writing readers, enjoy the book more. And so I opted for, at least I thought, really simple language and short sentences and things that would just help push the narrative.
I noticed that. One of the things I'm always keen on when I read a book is I try to understand the story behind the book.
Yeah.
I try to understand the story of the author, the writer. So it puts a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah.
And I think every reader tries to do that, really. Okay. How did you create your characters? By the way, I love your characters.
Thank you.
Carrington, Jiboye, Aisha, Christy, the young wife of Carrington, who was a former lover of Jiboye, his employee. I mean, it's crazy. So how did you create all that?
I will say, that one of the things that I wanted to do when I was writing the characters was be nuanced about it. I didn't want to write characters that were all good and all bad, because I know that nobody is all good and all bad. So with Carrington, even though he's like oppressive and he's all these horrible things, we also see glimpses of vulnerability that allows us to understand why he might behave, why the way he behaves, even if not justify it. I also want to say that a lot of the characters are inspired by, I'm trying to carefully avoid being sued for defamation. A lot of the characters are inspired by real life characters in the legal profession. And so it's interesting because a bunch of people who have read the work have come out to be like, oh, this is this lawyer, right? I know this is, and I'm like, I am not about to get sued. So whatever you guys think, you can run with it. But yeah, it was mostly, I was conscious about nuance, and I was conscious about representing what happens in reality in the book, and the characters that we would typically see play out in reality in the book.
It always fascinates me when writers speak the way you speak. You say them, them, and you see how hold a grudge against them and all that. I mean, you created them. Well, I mean, if you have a problem with them, change the story.
Yeah, no.
But it doesn't work like that, does it?
It really doesn't work like that. Think about it in terms of, and I'm not at all suggesting that I'm comparable to, like, the creator or God, depending on what you believe. But he, creates human beings, or they create human beings and set them, onto the earth, and we have free will to do what we will. And he's not killing you off if you don't, conform to what they've said is the will. So in that way, I had come to really like the characters, and I'd come to really be fond of the characters. But I also had to acknowledge that the characters had taken on an identity of their own. And so there were things that would be like, I'm serious. There were things that would be like, yeah,
you writers always say that.
This is entirely what Jiboye would
you writers always say that. So I'm like,
all the writers are saying that, shouldn't that
kill the guy if you want him dead?
Wow. Well, we were fond of them. We couldn't just kill them all.
Okay, but I agree with you. Because I've spoken to a lot of writers, and I noticed that trend. Characters actually develop lives of their own.
For sure.
Yeah, and that makes the story even more powerful, more potent, because if that doesn't happen, I think there's a way readers discern it when a writer is trying to force an issue. And then there will be inconsistencies in the story. I don't know, is that correct?
As a reader, I will say that sometimes I'm like, why did this writer interfere with the story in this way? So I think it's true that readers can sometimes discern when the writer imposes their will on the story. But as a writer, I was powerless to interfere. I truly didn't think that I had the power to guide them anymore. I think they ran with the story, and I just was like, fine, I'll type whatever it is you want me to type. Yeah.
So are you writing a sequel to this as we round up? Is there a sequel to this coming up, or an entirely different book coming up?
I can't say.
I'm not sure yet.
I think it might jinx, it might jinx things to talk about.
You want to breathe in and breathe out.
Because I'm also like doing academic writing right now. I'm focused on my PhD research, and so it's taking up a lot of time. I do have like a few stories that I'm mulling around in my head. But hey.
Let's see how it goes.
Yes.
Well done on this one. Great starts, and I think you've got a great future. I mean, writing. You need to keep churning these ones out.
Thank you.
Well done. Great to have you on Channels Book Club.
It was really lovely being here. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fascinating author, isn't she? Well, if you're wondering which other authors or which other Nigerian novels you should read, check out our list for 2021. I mean, our top 20 Nigerian books for 2021. And I give you some ideas. But you can also look at our past list of our favorite books of the year or top books of the year. You'll find great Nigerian authors on some of those lists. Begin to look out for them, and you'll really enjoy reading Nigerian novels. Now, here is another one with me. Well, this is a collection of short stories written by a medical doctor, a Nigerian medical doctor, has put this brilliant work together. It's titled Before Your Next Sex. Now, somewhere in here, he wrote that sex is that food that everybody eats, but you won't find on the menu because nobody wants to put it out there on the menu. He was trying to describe the way the subject of sex is taken in the Nigerian culture. Nobody wants to talk about sex openly, but sex is something that everybody talks about, if you get what I mean. Now, so this book, titled Before Your Next Sex, a collection of short stories, is a book written by, like I said, young Nigerian author Uche Anyanwagu, and he came into our studios to read from this book not too long ago. Now, let's get to meet with Uche and then enjoy the reading from his collection of short stories.
My name is Uche Anyanwagu. I'm going to read some chapters from my book titled Before Your Next Sex. On that cloudy Thursday evening, I was the only doctor on call at the Accident and Emergency Department of the hospital. It was during the twilight days of my national service as a corps member in a very busy district hospital in Abuja. The lobby of the General Outpatient Department was overflowing with patients, most of whom, from their helpless frowns and endless fidgeting along the hallway, you could tell had been waiting the whole day to see a doctor. That explained why some patients preferred to go to the A&E, which was my side of things. Not that they had conditions which required emergency attention, but because over there, we didn't have a long line spilling all the way out to the front door. It was not unusual to find a mix of anticipatory patients with real or imagined illnesses circling around the A&E between 4 p.m. and midnight seeking medical attention. Such parade could only overburden a lone doctor on duty whose task was to attend the actual emergencies. Earlier, I had consulted in the GOPD clinic till 1 p.m. before I was released to take a rest in anticipation of a busy night ahead in the A&E. Spread out on one of the 4 beds in the doctor's call room with my face buried into the pillow, half asleep, I was jolted out of my nap by an unusual noise. The noise came from high-pitched voices and was nothing like the typical wails from passers-by rushing in victims of fire or road traffic accidents into the ward. Rather, it was a combination of excitement and anger in loud shouts and vibrations. I immediately sat up on the bed and remained that way for a few minutes, trying to figure out what the commotion was about. Chapter 2, A Raging Battle. My patient Judith and her husband had invited me to the dedication service of their baby, Nathan, whom I had delivered 12 weeks earlier. It was testimony time at the popular Pentecostal church sited in a beautiful town in the southern part of eastern Nigeria. That Sunday, I had donned my starched white native attire, which complemented my brown brogos, polished to shine, and my ceremonial glasses. As I approached the entrance of the church, a beautiful, light-skinned young lady walked up to me. She wore a welcoming smile, which flashed her near-perfect dentition. She was an usher and must have perceived me to be an important personality, considering my appearance. With the assurance of a hostess showing her party guests where to sit, she took me by my elbow and led me to the hallowed front pew, usually reserved for the privileged minority. The day was going quite well, or so I thought, as I eagerly settled in for the service and was not too disappointed when it commenced. That is, until the junior pastor took the stage. I crossed and uncrossed my legs as he scrambled from one end of the pulpit to the other, all the while demonizing virtually all I have lived for as a medical doctor since the past 6 months. The longer I sat, the more I marveled at my endurance to even sit and listen. My stomach churned in disgust. I must have put up a poor show of art trying to hide my irritation, because my invitees could sense it, at least, judging from the expression on Judith's face when our eyes met. I gave her a tight-lipped smile and looked away. To escape the torturous task of having to listen to the enthusiastic pastor yell, I allowed my thoughts to roam. It wandered back to the day of baby Nathan's delivery, when I had my first encounter with labor-induced psychosis. That day, Judith, unable to endure the pangs of labor, briefly went psychotic as her labor progressed. She literally set the labor room on fire. She was at war with the beds, cupboards, and curtains, almost ripping to shreds everything and everyone on her path and beyond. So this book, Before Your Next Sex, is a collection of 30 short stories about my encounter while working in several clinics in Nigeria. So I just read part of chapter 2. So we have other 28 short stories there too, detailing similar episodes, and they all hover around sexuality and the interaction as well between culture, religion, spirituality, and unfounded medical myths. Now, the title seems to be a bit strange, Before Your Next Sex, but you'll discover in chapter 14 of the book that this title was drawn from a very moving story of a little child who went on to procure abortion, which is illegal in Nigeria, and developed complications. So the doctor that saw this child was so much touched that he felt that this child could have been any of his children. And because he wasn't coming home to meet his children that day, he decided to write a letter to the child to say, before your next sex, my child. And if you read that particular story, it's quite touchy, and you'll be able to see the important things that everyone, our teenagers, even the older ones, should learn about themselves, about their biology, about sexual and reproductive health rights before embarking or encountering their next sex. The sequel, chapter 15, Before That Next Sex, actually also details other important things that we should factor in, like sex determination and the rest of them. So there are so many lovely short stories here with so much lessons in them that we expect people to read and be informed. So my name is Uche Anyanwagu. I'm a medical doctor by training. I'm an epidemiologist by qualification. And I just love to tell stories.
Now, here's a photo I will treasure for life. You know, this work gets me to meet a lot of great, legendary authors and individuals. So I'm grateful for that. So this is the great General Alexander Madiebo, and who just turned 90 recently. Now, this man, he doesn't need too much introduction. You know him. He wrote the famous book, The Nigerian Revolution and the Biafran War, The Aftermath. Now, this is an update on the previously written book, with similar title, The Nigerian Revolution and the Biafran War. Now, this book is a book you absolutely have to read. We were with him, and we had such a good time with him. But we are going to be watching him very soon. He did talk about his book, and then his grandson read from the book. You'll love to watch that. More importantly, you want to get your hands on a copy of this book and read. We need to learn our history from different perspectives. When somebody tells the story of Nigeria from one perspective, read it, get another perspective, and then you can think about what your own personal conclusions will be. But it's a very important thing we need to do as a country. And thank God for people like Alexander Madiebo, who has written this book that is there for the ages. Well, this is where we have to draw curtains on the show today. My name is Olaoluwa Kasumo. We'll be very happy to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. As you go into the week, don't forget, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.